Are you ready? Stand by.
Welcome, everybody, to the Three Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman. This is episode 204, where I interview Craig Outzen about some of the most popular and controversial topics that have been discussed in the Facebook groups over the last few months.
This podcast is brought to you by Breda USA, Italian shotguns that are the best in the world. And this is a shotgun tech tip from Team Breda.
Hey, this is Dave Hartman from the Three Gun Show with Sean Burrows from Team Breda, and Sean has a tech tip for us today. Sean, what do you got?
Today I want to tell you about cleaning the bore of your shotgun. These are smooth bore guns, and unlike the other cartridges we discharge in 3-gun, shotgun shells are plastic, and what we want to do is make sure melted plastic comes out. So go get a 12-gauge size steel brush, put it on your cleaning tube, and then put it on a drill. Put some cleaning solution in here and actually use your drill to get it out. It won't hurt your barrel, and obviously there's no rifling to mess up. And it'll keep your gun clean and keep your patterns nice and patterny.
All right, there's your tech tip from Sean Burrows from Team Breda.
Check out Breda's B12i 3-gun ready inertia-driven shotgun at BredaUSA.com. That's BREDA. This podcast is brought to you by LAG Tactical. I've been using LAG gear for 3 years now, and I just got an upgrade into their new for 2018 MCS mag pouches. MCS stands for Modular Carry System and is a two-piece design that fits most double-stack 9 and 40 mags and most AR mags. That means I can loan gear to someone in need on the range, even if we're shooting different guns. I've been using these pouches for many matches now, and they've been great. I like that you can choose the retention based on what is required by the stage, Speed Demon or locked in tight. I've been shooting the low-cut Supernova holster as well, and it has been a dream. They make it in a mid and high cut too if you're into that, but I'm digging the low cut. Super fast draws and plenty of retention when you need it. Check them out, lagtactical.com, and use code 3GS in all caps to save yourself 10% when placing an order. Once again, thank you for joining me here on the Three Gun Show. If you're new to the show, this is a weekly podcast where we talk about all things practical shooting and focus on what it takes to improve you as a three-gunner and to improve the sport as a whole. But the show is entirely conversational, and I've found over the last 3 years that I've done this that some of the best conversations and learning moments come from that third or fourth question down and the discussion that ensues. Once you get past the doctrine and the gloss, you get to the truth of why people do what they do and how it makes them successful. That's what we're here to discuss today. That's what we're all about. And if that type of thing appeals to you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button in iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, etc. Once you do, you'll get a new episode sent straight to your smartphone every single Wednesday and sometimes twice a week. Now, on to the show for this week. Craig Outzen returns for a fun podcast where we take on some of the most controversial topics that have been discussed in the 3-gun Facebook groups recently, including the Serpa holster, half-day versus full-day match format, pro shooters as a myth, and should match directors shoot their own match? This show has sparked quite the spirited discussion on YouTube and Facebook, including in the 3-Gun Talk group on Facebook, which is one that the 3-Gun Show owns. So let us know what you think, whether it's on the blog at 3gunshow.com or whichever social platform you prefer. And enjoy this one with Craig Outzen. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the 3-Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman, and this is a special live edition with my buddy, Craig Outzen. How you doing, man?
Doing good, buddy. It's awesome. It's hot here in Utah, but we're doing okay for the summertime.
Oh, man, I drove by a bank today, 101 degrees here in Denver.
There's a buddy of mine. He's kind of a tactical trainer, Johnny Primo, and he was down in Arizona saying, hey, I miss Arizona because he's born there and all of that. And but still, kind of saying, but Utah's home now. And I'm like, oh, bro, enjoy Arizona because it's 102 here today. It's
crazy.
No difference. Yeah, it's been hot.
Awesome. Well, Craig, man, I'm pumped to have you back here, dude. I think this is
probably one of the longest trying to get a guy on a podcast that I've ever done. I think we tried to do this almost exactly a year ago, and here we are.
Yes. Well, and it's just been, it's been like hit and miss, and you've been busy. I mean,
Yeah.
You became super famous. I mean, hell, you're independently wealthy and traveling the world and a jet set lifestyle.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe it if I told you.
I keep wanting to see the Dan Bilzerian, hot tub pics with you and the Parker and living the life.
Yeah, you got to follow me on Snapchat for that one. Yeah, man. But so I had like a couple topics that I wanted to talk to you about, and I'm not going to tell you what they are because I'm going to save them for next time. But I sent you a text today, just like confirming that we were on for tonight, which is a good thing because we had a little mismatch on time, and we came up with some other interesting topics. And if anyone watching knows Craig, we got a bunch of people that are hanging out with us right now. You know that Craig just kind of likes to tell it like it is. So we took some of the most controversial topics that we could find on the Facebooks in recent memory. We didn't really look. We just kind of like, what were the things that we remember?
I try to keep up on a lot of stuff. I've gotten better about not engaging on Facebook as much. Mm-hmm. Not for any reason other than that it's just hard to keep up with the volume, and you're the 50th voice in the which shotgun's best for 3-gun thread, and at some point I try to send folks messages. If it's a new guy talking, I try to send a private message and say, hey man, please message me, we can talk, and then we don't have to get through all that. But it gets a little tough to engage every conversation, and it seems like a lot of things with the groups and stuff that forums used to go through, where it starts out really good, it's really informative, it's really positive, and then it kind of goes through this mediocrity point where it's hard to sort through good information. Everybody I think means well. I don't think there's any like nefarious maliciousness to it, but just the volume gets to be hard for folks to wade through.
Mm-hmm. I honestly think that there's some sort of like social experiment that we can do with the 3-gun Facebook groups, and 3-gun talk. I was a member of that one, and I identified it as like what I consider like the calmest and most rational of the groups, but it was also the slowest growing, and it was both of those things are interconnected, right? Because the admins in it kind of kept people. They weeded people out, right? So I let Kevin Travis, who owned it, know that, hey, man, if you ever want to get rid of that, I would love to take over for you. And then timing just happened to be right one time, and it's now something I own. So I spent a lot of time there. But I got this, for people watching on the YouTube, I got this little graph, right? And I'm doing this backwards, so let's see if I can do this in the camera. But this is like a question, and then here's the level of helpfulness, right, over time. And helpfulness goes up, and then it takes just a weird turn and just goes straight down, and somehow like most threads crash. But for whatever reason, 3-gun, and of course I'm biased, but for whatever reason, 3-gun talk is able to maintain a little bit of semblance of rationality because of that. But we have some awesome admins in there that are not afraid to ban people, and they're not afraid to delete posts when they get personal, for sure.
It's tough, right? Like to use Brian Enos forums as an example. That's another. I think that's probably one of the longest running forums that still gives good information.
Yeah.
There's probably a little more. Like I said, there's a volume that you have to wade through. But yeah, they've done that through just really aggressive moderation, and I think so much so in the 3-gun groups as well. And 3-gun top's pretty solid, right? There's guys can go in and do that. I don't know that anybody's figured out how to do the really good, an efficient way of like pinned posts.
Facebook limits that. It's kind of awkward. Right? Yeah.
And so we've almost made it harder for new guys to get into it because they have to come into this group and say, hey man, what's the best shotgun? And you could just feel the collective conscience of 3-gun just be like,
Nah, my favorite is I bought X shotgun. Is it good? It's like, dude, you already bought it, man. Like, just use it and enjoy it, So it's
it's kind of an interesting thing.
All shotguns suck. You screwed up, right? like regardless of what shotgun you bought, it's going to malfunction and you're going to hate it. So no, yeah, it's what's the best trigger, all of that kind of stuff. Maybe you can, if there was a way to do the pin thing, but I think there's a part of us too that wants a little controversy. We want a little argument. We want to have bought the different thing, and we want to justify that purchase somehow. And it's a way. It's a way for someone to participate in their hobby, in their sport, their activity, if they don't have other ways to do it. So I've told people this story before. I had a hand surgery, and I cut some nerves in a finger and had to have it sewn up under a microscope by this really high whiz doc, and he put it in a cast, and I couldn't move it and all of this kind of stuff. So I was unable to do anything. I couldn't shoot. I couldn't do, well, it was my right hand, so like even going to the bathroom was a whole new adventure in dexterity and just, dude. That's where I learned that I'm right-handed. I am right-handed, period. End of story. But I bought so much crap during that 3 or 4 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the only way I could participate. And so, if folks are ways away from a range, or they don't, they've got that day job that keeps them out, and wintertime it's dark. That tends to be kind of the way we participate. So
yeah, and I've found that the negative comments are cyclical, seasonal, I guess I would say. So in the wintertime, they definitely do turn a lot worse, a lot fast. But in the summertime, when there's stuff to do and the birds are chirping and stuff like that, it's a little bit better. But Craig, we've got a bunch of people hanging out with us on YouTube Live right now, and what I want to say to those folks is that we're going to answer your questions at some point here too. So go ahead and throw them in the chat, and if we don't answer them right away, just hang with us, and Craig and I will get to them. But Craig, got 4 topics here, buddy. I'm gonna let you choose, man. So our topics are the Serpa holster, half day versus full day format, should match directors shoot their own match, pro shooters as a myth, and of those 4, which one do you want to start with first?
Let's get the oldest out of the way first. How about Serpa holsters? What's the is there still controversy there? Because that seemed to have come and gone when that was developed.
Well, we had a little dust up in the 3-gun talk recently. There was I don't remember how it exactly started, but someone had a post like making fun of Serpa holsters, or someone that had one or something like that. And then the Serpa sympathizers came out of the woodworks, and things got pretty heated, and they actually turned personal, and we had to ban a few people.
Oh, that's crazy. Because
over holsters.
Logically, right?
Right.
There's 2 things in this world that I think were really horribly from an ergonomic thought standpoint, and how big companies got this wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think you're about to do it, but describe the function of a Serpa holster if someone's listening and maybe they don't know what we're talking about.
Right. So folks who haven't seen the original Serpa holster, right? It's just it's pretty much a solid Kydex holster, but it had a locking mechanism that ran right down with your index finger. So as you grip the gun, your finger went down, and you pushed a button that then released the trigger guard internally in the holster and allowed the gun to come out. So it's a locking holster. It's a level 1 retention or level 2, depending on who you ask, but it's got a good positive retention. The gun's not going to come out unless you activate that button.
Right. Which is good for several reasons, right? For 3-gun, it means that it won't come out when we're, slung up, and maybe we hit it with the sling. It won't come out when we're jumping around, something like that.
But I've always been a fan of history, right? And they used to do a somersault test. Way in the old days, USPSA, you had to do a somersault test with your holster and your mag pouches, and your stuff had to stay retained.
No kidding.
Yeah, so that was part of the old. There was a holster test, and I love these stories, right?
Talk about holster or stories tests we should bring back, man. That sounds like fun.
Absolutely. I just think it'd be fun to watch everybody have to do a somersault at their first stage, right?
Yep.
Go roll over. So quad loading, be gone. But that it came from that, or not came from that, but yeah, the holster is solid. It can help, if it's a good physical match and you got to jump some fences or climb something, it's an Andy Horner match at Blue Ridge. You got a good positive retention on that holster. The problem with it comes that we're using this to release it, and that movement that makes it go bang isn't that much different than that movement when we're grabbing the gun.
Yeah, and for folks that are listening, Craig's wiggling his trigger finger.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
So yeah, you've got, you're activating this button to release the gun with your index finger, with your trigger finger in a motion that's really like pulling the trigger. And then you're drawing the gun out. So that finger's still in that motion. And yeah, you should train, you should be solid in that. We all know that we can do one thing pretty well. As soon as we stack a second skill on it, that one thing breaks down. As soon as we stack a third skill, those two things break down, so on and so forth. And so it gets pretty easy for somebody to have a deal with that.
For background, you're a firefighter EMT, right?
Correct.
And you've seen a lot of oops.
So I've actually seen lots and lots of oops. I've been in the fire service for 22 years. Several years ago, about 10 years ago, well, actually starting in 2002, I had another guy with the local police department in Salt Lake County, kind of co-developed getting our medics on the SWAT team. So I actually went through post. I was a SWAT cop for a while, and I still reserve with the police department. So I get to see it from that side too. And the Serpa holster, just for us in 3-gun, is just that. It's just the lock that's the issue, right? Is the lock being activated by the trigger finger? But from the law enforcement side, there was some problems that you could actually get some dirt, something in the holster could block that lock from releasing the gun. And then you couldn't get the gun out at all. And so that became a whole nother operational problem for somebody who needed a gun, had maybe been in a ground fight, something like that. So it was one of those holsters. Like I said, I hate to kick a big manufacturer in the guts a little bit here, but man, I just wonder how that thing got through product testing, with a big deal.
I'm also surprised, and I don't know who manufactures it. You probably don't want to tell me, but I'm surprised that it's still on the market with as many people who have shot themselves or not been able to draw their pistol for whatever reason. It's in the thread, there were several people that I respect as shooters and as individuals that said that they will not RO someone if they have a Serpa holster on.
That gets a little. I understand that line of thought, right? I think we got to be really careful in a sport. My first introduction to action shooting was IDPA stuff, and I got into it, started getting really into it, and the new IDPA rule book came out. Whatever time period that was, it was a time for that rule book to come out, and IDPA by name said this holster isn't legal. And it was because it stuck out too far from the body, right? It stuck out 1.25 inches, and you could only stick out 1 inch, whatever it was. But I thought that was really dangerous for a sport to do to a company who, rather saying, hey, we are going to enforce the holster rule of it being only 1 inch off the body, and then going to the holster companies and saying, hey, will you make us a holster that we can suggest to our participants by model number that is legal? Right. But they said by name, and it was Uncle Mike's at the time. And they said, Uncle Mike's holsters are illegal. Well, at the time,
all Uncle Mike's holsters.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like all of them are illegal. like every Uncle Mike's thing. And at the time, I mean, it's got holsters are pretty ubiquitous now, but if you were going to take a new guy shooting IDPA at the time, Uncle Mike's holsters were available at Walmart.
Yeah.
So, and that was one of the few places that you could get, other than a police supply house or whatever. But if you had a new person that wanted to go shoot a match, you could go to Walmart, spend $30 and get them a holster and a mag pouch, and they could go shoot a match. And I just thought it was really backwards to go to that extreme. Now, we've established the SERPA is pretty secure as far as holding the gun. And we can also say that, obviously there's been a ton of them sold. They're maybe they're a little overrepresented in the oops, I just shot myself category.
Yeah.
But I think
overrepresented is a good way to put it.
And who knows what those numbers are, right?
Right.
But we, by nature, we do a lot of things that require a higher level of skill set, a higher level of gun handling, a higher level of emotional control to do correctly. So I would just suggest if somebody has that stance of, I will not RO somebody with a SERPA holster, I could probably come up with another 100 things that you should not be around this sport for that are equally or potentially as dangerous as that SERPA holster, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably shouldn't be around anybody with a sling on their gun because slings get caught on tear pistols out of holsters or whatever, right? I think all of that's within our control, and maybe if we see somebody that's at a little lower skill level that's getting a little crazy trying to get a SERPA holster apart, maybe we do stop them, take them over to a safety area, talk with them a little bit, do some remedial training, whatever it takes, and go on with that rather than the absolutely not deal.
Right. Okay, so how many SERPA holsters do you own?
None. But I want to be fair. I wouldn't hold never mind. I do own one, not with the SERPA lock.
Oh yeah.
It's the non-lock version. It's for a little Glock 26 that I have. So I take that back, but I wanted to be fair and give Blackhawk a big kudos. I don't know if everybody's seen the Omnivore holsters.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. It fits every pistol or something. They're
legit. Larry Hauk's there now, and he sent me one just to play with, right? And dude, they're legit. It's a good economical deal. And I don't want to, I'm not trying to hurt anybody in the holster biz, but for those folks out there that are having a hard time, which holster do I get, or who do I call, or which vendor do I go with? Amazon, clickety clack, 2 days Prime, right? And there you are. So.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen one of those in person. I guess I saw them at SHOT Show, but didn't stop to look at them or anything. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. It's a pretty unique little deal. It's basically a bucket holster. If you buy one that so there's basically three models. There's a model for no lights. Your gun takes a rail and it's got a little block that goes onto the Picatinny rail. And that's what the holster locks onto. So it keeps the trigger guards covered. And then if you have a light model, you either could do the Streamlight model or the Surefire model, and it locks onto the light. So the gun's pretty much free around in there, and it's locking onto the accessory rail.
Right, and then the idea is that it can retain different types of pistols too without switching a holster.
Exactly, and it's got a positive lock on it. So, yeehaw!
All right. Okay, so have we covered the SERPA thing?
I thought it was covered before we brought it up because it's been known as not the favorite holster for a while, but
yeah, not recommended. Okay, so half day versus full day format. I have a completely different opinion on this in the last 3 months than I used to.
Tell me.
All right, so traditionally I've been a fan of the half day format. Simply because I do a lot of podcasts. You can't do a podcast in the hour between stages, right? Tracking down the person, getting make sure your gear's all ready and you've got your stage plan and stuff like that. Okay, now let's focus on a podcast, and then get back to shooting. And that doesn't work, right? Also, I travel with my dog a lot, and when he's around, it's tough to be gone for an entire 10-hour day, right? Because I gotta, go let him out and stuff like that in between, and it just seems like there's a lot of wasted time. So a half day format was preferred. However, I did shoot a match without my dog, and that was the Vortex Shooter Source 3-gun, and I found it to be super enjoyable because I didn't have the stress of waiting for him
or excuse me, like thinking like, okay, well, we better get this done because I got to go, let the dog out. He's got to poop. He's probably hungry. He's lonely and stuff like that. But on the same note, I didn't get any podcasts during that time because there's no time in between stages,
And you're supposed to do that, right? Like that's
the gig, right? Yeah, right? Like that's what I write down on my taxes. I go to the match for podcasts, and I also get to shoot them.
So, my opinion on it has always been the answer that it varies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got more of a, if you think about this, and I think this is where match directors and shooters try to learn and figure it out or try to apply it maybe, and sometimes they get it wrong. But Rocky Mountain 3 Gun's a good example. You are an easy 15 to 20 minutes from one stage to drive to the other stage.
Yeah, people always bring that one up because it's the extreme.
And that's exactly what I'm setting up, right? I'm setting up the extreme. So So if you've got a match where there's a reasonable amount of downtime from one stage to the next, then that full day alternating format is pretty good because it gives you time to take that one on, one off, get your gear ready. You're not getting hustled by ROs. You're not, running here and there, forgetting a piece of gear on a stage, having to get back to it, all those kinds of things. Half-day formats are pretty cool if you've got a place to take advantage of them.
Yeah.
Right? But let's use Rocky Mountain 3 Gun, for example. What are you going to do? You're going to go back to Raton?
Their Kmart is wonderful.
Yeah. Like Kmart, then the wagon wheel. Woohoo. We had a great afternoon, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. This last weekend we shot the Colorado 3 Gun Championship, and I heard from several people that they went to Manitou Springs and filled water bottles with spring water, which, being a Colorado native, I was like, huh, okay. But they got to go do the touristy thing and see some really cool sites, have nice meal in small mountain town that they normally wouldn't have. So there's plenty to do.
And exactly that, right? So if you're someplace, so both world shoots that I went to, they did a half-day format, and that was really fantastic because obviously there's plenty to see or to get out and do in that half day that's off. So I think the bigger deal is I'm not really hardcore one way or the other. I just think the match has to look at it and pick what's good for the match. Little short stages, Pete's Expedition match in Vegas. The idea is it's, little short, fast stages. Hey, let's get them all done.
Mm-hmm.
That format lends to itself. So,
well, you've got Vegas right there, which if you can't find something to do in Vegas, you're not trying very hard.
Right. So, there's great food. You can go whatever, if it's the aquariums to go see, casinos, all of those kinds of things.
There's even hiking on the outskirts of town.
Well, and that's maybe the bad thing about the venue change was the most of the matches used to be out Desert Sportsman's and you were out there at Red Rocks.
Yeah.
So it was right. You could literally leave, drive a half an hour and be hiking, up in the mountains and stuff. So, all kinds of stuff to do, but I'm not a real hardcore one way or another guy on it. I just want the match to pick the one that fits the match.
Mm-hmm.
And I do hate it when I'm rushed by ROs, right?
Same here, man.
We had a match earlier this year and it's a bay. It's for the most part a bay match. But there was one section where we shot 2 stages and then we had to pack everything up in the truck and drive, a few hundred yards to the next stage. And there was 3 of us working out of the truck and we weren't wasting any time. It's not like we pulled the lawn chairs out and had a siesta, right?
Mm-hmm.
But getting 3 guys' stuff all squared away back in the truck and then getting over. And we've got an RO and he's got a history of talking to adults like children, which is one of the big reasons why the match doesn't do very well anymore. But we get there and he starts doing the dress down thing and, tapping his watch. And it was like, oh, if you think I was slow before you started tapping your watch. watch what happens now, right?
Yeah, man. That's one thing that I
hate
absolutely hate is being rushed, and that did happen to me earlier in a match. The other thing along the same line is the RO that's like having a difficulty with a squad that's in front of you, and then starts to yell at you for the sins of that squad before you even get to the stage. It's like, dude, I don't know what happened here, man. Like I just got here, but I'm sorry you're having a bad day.
This is the perfect time to put out our disclaimer, right? Because we're talking match administration stuff. I have all the gratitude in the world for ROs, for match directors, for people who put matches on the ground for us to shoot.
It's not easy.
No, it's not easy, and major matches are a pain in the butt. I probably even have more admiration for those guys that do it every other week for their local match, right? We give up a few hours on a Saturday to shoot a match, and those guys give up their Friday night, their Saturday, part of their Sunday. Their family does scores or whatever, and so I do have a total appreciation for that. That being said, when you got $2,000 tied up in traveling to a match, you don't get to talk to me like my mother used to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. An old cantankerous guy once told me that these are entertainment dollars, and we can spend them elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's and we've talked about that before, right?
You're the old cantankerous guy that told me that. So
I'm not cantankerous. Well,
oh, my bad. Well, at the time you were.
I okay. Maybe I'm capable of what's the word? Cantankerosity?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I guess I could be cantankerous. No, and it's true, right?
Yeah.
I think matches have to look at that, and that plays hand in hand of what format, what time, all of those things. I think everybody who's traveled to more than say 5 or 6 matches has experienced a match that maybe the stages weren't that that great, but the match run well. They had a good time with their buddies. There was a decent restaurant that they ate in at night and had a drink and told stories, and they had a great time. And that match forever is a good match, not because, it had the most complicated stages or the longest shots, but because the match treated them like a good customer and had a good experience set up for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to keep track of and enjoy that. Right.
Well, and you think about like the places that you and Karen like to go to. It's not places where they yell at you when you walk in the door. It's not places that treat you poorly. You would not return to those places, right?
Well, Karen gets violent, so we have to be really careful about if somebody hollers at her. She'll start hitting people. She beats me when we're home alone, Dave. I gotta.
Yeah, I saw you blinking SOS there.
Yeah. So, no, and that's exactly it. And I'm not saying you have to kiss somebody's ass or anything like that.
No, just be polite.
Yeah, you're an RO. And I've RO'd a lot too. When you're ROing, you have 2 jobs. 1, keep everybody safe, and 2, try to make it as I'd like to term it like, try to give every shooter as good of an opportunity as they can be afforded to do their best, right? They may screw it up. You're going to make mistakes at certain times, but are you putting in the effort? And it's almost self-fulfilling if you start I hope nobody figures out who this was, but I got to tell you from nationals this year, and USPSA has always had a
problems.
Lot of people. Well, okay, so here we go. I'm going to defend some USPSA stuff, right? If you're a pistol shooter and you became NROI certified and you've done a lot of pistol ROing, and you decide to go help out for the 3-gun nationals, let's be honest, there's a lot of things that you learned about pistol ROing that happen at a pistol only match that really don't translate well to long guns. So it does make that guy a little bit, right? Like in our sport, you hear everybody make fun of all the trap shooting guys about resting their gun on their toe.
Yeah, and pointing them at me and their children, everyone.
It's a stick, right? Yeah. Like it's not. I get it, right? I'm just pointing out that based on the venue, there's some acceptable practices and there's some not acceptable practices.
Yep.
In 3-gun, pretty acceptable for us to take a gun over to a berm and unbag a long gun, point it up in the air and walk over to the RO, right? Well, since that's not even in the realm with pistol, that freaks them out a little bit. So I'm just hoping that people can understand that. Let's not talk about anybody being nefarious. Let's not talk about, and let's be honest, there's ROs that are assholes.
Yeah.
They're not an asshole RO. They're just an asshole person.
Right.
And
right.
thank God they're very few, but they probably have hard times ordering McDonald's hamburgers too.
Yeah, man. They're the kind of person that stands behind you in the security line for the airplane going,
yeah. Relax, dude. It's TSA.
Yeah,
We're not nobody's getting
yeah,
through
exactly. Here. You're not helping this.
You're not helping yourself. But
yeah.
So let's just keep it level. There's no ulterior motives here. So there's a little bit of that. Well, then you have 3-gun shooters that are like, oh, I hate USPSA because the ROs always screw up and this and that. Well, one, there's been a lot of work to try to smooth that out and all of that kind of stuff. But there's still a little bit of an issue. Now, this guy wasn't that problem. But we got to our first stage, and this involves scouting too. This was what was hilarious. So
good.
Yeah, Jerry's out shooting with us on our squad. It's kind of the first match after Mike passed that everybody's together to shoot a match, and so there's kind of some stuff going on. Scouting's there to film, so we get to our first stage, and the stage starts out with you. Basically, with shotgun, you move from your right to your left, shoot about 9 or 10 shots, put the shotgun in the dump, pick up your rifle, and then move back from left to right, shooting a bunch of paper with some long targets at the end. So the RO, and it was morning, it's us. We're, nobody's gathering up for the stage brief. He says stage brief 3 times. We're even a couple guys in the squad are starting to be like, hey, come on, right? Like, get over here for the stage brief. So by the time we get stage brief, he's already into authoritarian mode, right?
Oh, good.
And he starts getting lippy, and I'm like, oh no, here we go. So he makes a decree that heretofore no one shall touch the shotgun to make it safe other than an RO. And no unloading the guns, right? He's this unloading guns to help make the stage quicker. That's not going to happen on his stage. Only an RO is going to unload that shotgun. So he kind of makes that clear, goes through the rest of the stage brief. Now, at the same time, John Scouten is setting up his camera guys around the stage to get the best shots, right? And dude, John's a pro, right? He's been at this a while. He knows how to do this. Yeah. And he's not kind of a new guy. And he sets the new guy up right over by the shotgun dump bucket.
Oh, no.
You know where this is going.
That poor bastard.
So new guy's over there filming at the shotgun dump bucket, and I want to say I think it was Jerry was first. So Jerry, of course, burns down the shotgun, gets rid of the shotgun, tears up the rifle. You're like prone for 4 targets. Jerry goes prone, crushes it. It's a nice clean first stage, right? And bang. And we look over, there's the RO touching Jerry's shotgun and a plume of dust from the bottom of the dump bucket.
Oh my God. The RO AD'd?
The RO rock. Oh yeah. And this is like 3 feet away from John's new camera guy who's now just sitting there like,
does this happen a lot?
And that's exactly it, right? Like all he knows is this guy's the leader. And he just rocked one off into the ground at him. And this was the guy telling everybody to be careful. So you see, he's just like, I don't know if I want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. I'm assuming everyone was okay. So it's all right for us to laugh at this one.
Oh, totally. Yeah. The dump barrel was it was an MGM dump. So it was angled. It was, it was fine. It just made a lot of dust. And, yeah, and I looked at the RO and I'm like, well, good thing that only ROs can touch shotguns. Kind of did one of those.
Just turn that knife a little bit.
We carried on. Yeah, and we carried on, but I guess it's just to say that the USPSA thing is a little bit. There's probably still some things to iron out. It has gotten so much better than 5 years ago, 10 years ago, stuff like that. So hopefully they can continue to make that good.
Yeah, we shall see. All right. Last two. Should match directors shoot their own match or the pro shooter myth?
Let's go ahead and tackle the pro shooter myth.
All right, pro shooter myth it is.
It's one of the things, and this is something that I've had to actually kind of fight with myself with a little bit over time, and you'll see it brought up in threads all the time. Just people in shirts, the people in shirts, the pro shooters.
Should I read the definition of professional before we move on?
Let's do that. That sounds like a very good idea.
All right,
I like that.
So number one, I don't really like in this case relating to or connected with a profession, but number two is spot on. A person engaged in a specific activity as one's main paid occupation rather than as a pastime. How many people does that describe in 3-gun?
Well, you.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, actually, it describes me. And then probably
Jerry.
Jerry, Lena, Kay, 3 others. You know, and I've heard it said, well, even Jerry can't make a living in 3-gun. He hustles classes. Well, I would argue that those two are so closely related that is exactly it. It's like saying you can't make it as a photographer because you're doing weddings on the side.
Yeah, that's well, and that's one of those things. I think the thing too is I set, and I don't know everybody's details, right? So some of these are assumptions, but
sure.
I think it's pretty safe when you look at, say, Doug Koenig, Rob Latham, and Jerry, and their main job is solely shooting matches.
Mm-hmm.
They probably teach a little on the side. They do this and that, but let's oppose that to, say, Dave Savigny and Max Michel, right? Those two guys have a job position with a company. And so although they shoot matches and they get to do a lot of match activity, they still have they still kind of punch a clock and have job assignments to do.
Huh, I didn't know that. Do you have any details on exactly the role?
No, I don't have exact things, right? But for instance, I do know Max has to teach for SIG Academy.
Oh, okay.
Right. So not only does he do his own classes, but he has to teach classes for them, and he's inside the marketing part of it. And he's also going to be, inside when they get a new pistol. Okay, hey, we need to have this much evaluation done, and kind of much more a formal thing than rather than saying somebody sent Craig a pistol and I went out, shot 500 rounds and was like, good job. Right.
Thumbs up.
That's awesome. There's much more formal activity to a lot of these guys in their job role. Now, that doesn't mean they can't be a great shooter. It doesn't mean they don't win matches. It doesn't mean they don't make money there. But there's very few people that have been able to make it all on, say, product sponsorship, brand ambassador stuff, just that. Maybe there's some more people making that in the Instagram, YouTube world type deal. I think that's probably a different revenue path that maybe has become a little bit, it's come onto the scene that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
But
honestly, I don't know if I would call that I would agree that is a professional shooter in the aspect that they do shoot and they're getting compensated for it, but I don't think it falls under what in 3-gun we typically call a pro shooter, right? When we throw up the air quotes.
Yeah, and then you've got the AMU guys, right? And technically, I guess that's a pro shooter thing too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's a lot of limitation as to what they can and can't do, and what they can shoot and can't shoot, and so on and so forth with respect to equipment and gear and things like that. And they also have some regular job duties to do that are not far removed from shooting, but have nothing to do with going to matches, right? So when you really get down to it, let's even if we lumped in all those people together in the grand scheme of shooters, there's not very many people making house payments.
Yeah. It's like 25.
Yeah. and there's a whole lot of shooters, and then there's this whole pro shooter thing. And I feel like since there's, like I said, I'll totally throw out the, some of this is probably comes off as personal and it might have a personal root to it, but it seems like it's convenient to throw pro shooters under the bus when we want to talk about those guys. And then it's also convenient to want to be a pro shooter when you can get something for it, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
and,
that's very true. And I don't think that's specific to 3-gun or to shooting. That seems like a human nature kind of thing. Like you want to be in the group with all of the advantages and none of the disadvantages, right?
Totally. Right. Like I would 100% agree with you. Like it's not a product that's unique to our sport or our little corner of the world.
Yeah.
But it does happen. And I guess here's where I came to this. Like for a little while, I was kind of like, maybe a little bit fighting against it or trying to confront it when I saw it or whatever. But I guess this was the way that I dealt with it. And this was the reason that I brought it up and wanted to talk to you about it was I think both sides of it are having something taken away from them, right? Like at the end of the day, there's a group of people who feel like maybe they're not being given the same advantage as another group of people. And so they're mad. And there's a group of people who have worked pretty damn hard and spent a lot of resources to maybe get to a place where they get an advantage or two.
Mm-hmm.
And they're mad because, someone's not recognizing that end of things or upset. And at the end of the day, it's our hobby.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's for
We're
sure.
doing this to hang out with people. We're
supposed
doing this
to be
hang out with
fun.
And somehow or another, we're getting, we're getting mad and we're worried about who got an extra trigger and who didn't get a trigger. Mm-hmm. Or if somebody got, whatever it is, squatting help or so on and so forth.
Well, I'll tell you what, the thing that I've observed, and this is from my personal experience with shooting, got several dozen matches over the last 3 years that I've been doing the 3-gun show, 230 interviews, that kind of thing. Yeah. So, and all the offline conversations I've observed a lot. I've experienced a lot, and I'm by no means the end all be all on the topic, but I've seen a lot. So I will say that the advantages that I'm going to use my air quotes again, the super squad gets a lot of times at a match also come with additional scrutiny.
And I'll say this, right? Like I wouldn't even argue that there's not some advantages to the super squad. Mm-hmm. or as as a perennial member of the B squad, squad, right? Like, you're not going to win anything, but you're cute and you try hard. I guess the thing that I would say is one, those advantages didn't come cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm totally good with having the argument of whether those advantages are even advantages or not, or whether they seem unfair and maybe we should eliminate those just to eliminate the sense of impropriety or something like that. That's a little bit different conversation. But the other part of it is just like you said, there's a certain level of scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain level of maybe freedom that you lost, if that makes sense. And I've chosen perfectly to take that. I like it. I have had so many good things come from representing a product and talking to people, meeting you and talking to you. And I love, you say you've seen a lot, and you and I have talked about this in the past offline, is I would actually say you have more information and more good anecdotal information to be an incredible resource for the growth and the future of 3-gun if people will use you appropriately, if that makes sense.
Well, thanks.
I just had some cool pictures in my head on the use you.
I'm ready to be used.
But no, right? Because you in the classic journalist sense, and you and a couple other people have had this you have this amazingly objective position to look at that. Now people can, point fingers and fake news you and bias you or whatever, but I don't see that in you personally. And I think that you'll get to be privy to a lot of information from all different aspects that a lot of people maybe only see from their perspective.
Yeah. And I can give you an example of that, Craig. There was I guess the first year I was touring around, I didn't have any Go Fast jerseys or anything like that. I was wearing T-shirts, and it was just T-shirts that people gave me or match T-shirts or whatever. And I'm sitting there with my rifle I built myself, my shotgun that everyone tells me is a piece of S, and I've got my regular Glock 34. I'm like the every guy that you see at a match.
Yep.
I've got nothing like super high zoot, high end, nothing carbon fiber or anything, but because of what I do, I was able to shoot on several really good squads of, people call it, like you said, the B squad or the super squad, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And I've observed the way that the people that were wearing the Go Fast jerseys and do have the brand new, 511 or True Spec or, Vertex pants and brand new shoes and this and that, seeing the way that they were treated by other shooters, staff, and things like that, and that's why I said it doesn't come without scrutiny, because whatever perceived advantage you think that they have as a squad, I've seen super squads walk up to a stage and immediately get barked at by ROs like, just because you're wearing jerseys doesn't mean you don't have to reset. And it's like, whoa, bro, what are you talking about? And it's, and, I felt, like, I think you just said like the embedded photographer, where it's like, I'm kind of impartial, but I'm sitting here in my UN hat and my media
you're the presidential photographer taking pics of Marilyn Monroe and Kennedy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm getting the good stuff here.
Yeah, exactly. So, I've seen a lot of that. And I've seen it, I say I've seen a lot of that, but the vast majority of what I've seen is a mutual respect amongst staff, amongst shooters, amongst other squads. So when we talk about these salacious topics, we're talking about like this small little sliver of the pie, that is exciting to talk about and does give us something to give us something to talk about in the winter months. But I have seen it for sure.
Well, and you know what, I've said this a lot too, is as a general rule, I played golf pretty seriously in high school. And a lot of people, if you've played golf and actually get into the USGA rule book, there's a limit to the number of clubs you can have in your bag. And there's a little known rule that you can only play the balls that you have in your bag. So if you have a bad day and you only had, a dozen balls in your bag and you put 11 of them in the water and you're on your last ball and you kick it out of bounds, it's unlikely that somebody's going to loan you you won't get a ball.
Really?
At the big boy level. Okay. I have a buddy that played a lot of, like state level tennis stuff. And the same thing, you have 3 rackets and you break strings on 2 of them and your third racket goes bad. It's unlikely that somebody's going to bring you a racket.
Mm-hmm.
And you contrast that to us, right? Like, Hey, you look like you're just standing there watching. Did you come to shoot? No, I just want to watch. I've never been to a match before. Well, come over to my truck.
Yeah.
Here's a belt. Here's a Glock 34. Here's some mags. Here's, I got 50 rounds of ammo. That guy's got 50 rounds of ammo. Come shoot the local match with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always said, even the people in our sport that are kind of jackasses are still pretty good jackasses. And,
that's the truth.
And that goes along. We were talking about ROs. I can think of a guy that's an RO and you could probably say his name to many, many people and they'd go like, I hate that guy. And dude, there's every reason in this world to like, I call him the RO of inappropriate focus. He has never paying attention to what he should be paying attention to, and he's always paying attention to shit that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But there's no maliciousness in this guy at all. He really is trying to do a good job, and he's at a ton of matches working. He worked all of Pete's Expedition match, and never, the way Pete's Expedition match works, there's a good opportunity for somebody to RO and shoot the match. Dude, he RO'd like 3 of the 4 time slots every day.
Oh wow.
In 105-degree heat, right?
Yeah, that's dedication right there.
So as much as you'd like to go over there and slap him around because he's sitting there, doing some silly stuff, there's still some pretty good people around. And I guess that's where I'm at right now, right? Is like, hey, let's get back to, who cares if you think that someone got an advantage getting squatted or not squatted? That guy probably paid some cost. I know what it's cost me to get where I'm at, and I'm amazingly lucky to have some really good help and some sponsorship, and that's great. But it didn't come without a lot of effort, and it didn't come without a lot of work. And I don't say that for sympathy. I think it's something that it's easy to not recognize when somebody says pro shooter.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my mind a little bit recently in 3-gun talk. There was some who brings, your question was who brings more shooters in.
Yeah.
And it was like,
can I defend myself on that one real quick?
It wasn't with you. It was with Kevin.
No,
right?
no, I understand,
ahead,
but let me give a little bit of background on that one. So the genesis of that question is I was talking to a friend and he mentioned something about how the mid pack brings in more shooters than pro shooters ever will. And I thought, I asked, and one of my favorite things to do is to ask people, do you really believe that? And it doesn't matter if I agree with them or not, but it elicits an interesting response because it really makes them consider their position. So right. I asked, do you really believe that? And he's like, yeah, don't you? And I'm like, honestly don't know because I never thought about it. And so that's when I put it to the group in 3-gun talk, who brings in more people, the mid pack or the pro shooter. I didn't say pro shooter. I can't remember exactly how I worded it, but that is the genesis for people who aren't in 3-gun talk and might be listening here.
No, and totally. Like when I saw your question formatted, there wasn't anything there. It was, I knew that it was you putting the question out, right?
Yeah,
and I couldn't stay away from the bait. That was like stinky cheese in a carp pond.
Well, and that's the thing is like I could think about this all by myself, or I could think about this with 5,000 of my closest friends.
and if we put criteria on it, right, it changes that answer. Mm-hmm. In the last year, did mid-pack people bring in more new shooters, or did pro people,
or over a lifetime,
over time shooting, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and you in particular are one of those air quote pro shooters we always talk about, and you've actually competed in several disciplines over a lifetime. So
right.
When you want to say lifetime score, it's kind of tough.
Be careful, right? Because how does that Jansen Jones and Joe Satterfield in Hungary hired a Hungarian guy to drive him around. His name's Janos. And dude, awesome dude. That guy would kill to be a shooter, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he would if you gave him a flipper for a right hand, he would swim the Atlantic Ocean to come shoot. So, how do you count all of those? And I guess my bigger point was, and this is where it kind of goes through, it goes through the pro shooter thing. It goes through with the mid-pack shooter and prize table stuff and all of that is like all of those shooters that everybody points at and says they're getting all the advantages. They had to go through a process. And I think that's kind of what's forgotten. And that's the part that, kind of got me riled up or got me a little bit pissed off was like, you don't think I was a mid-pack shooter one time? Like I went to a match with a Bushmaster M4, right? That was my 3-gun rifle.
Me too, man. Mine wasn't even a Bushmaster. I had to make it myself.
Well, and so my second rifle was one I built myself with a local guy's help, and it was all kinds of crazy put together parts, but it resembled what was kind of a 3-gun rifle at the time. And so, everybody has had to go through that. So if you look at those guys, know that they were there too. And the other part of it is I just have, with the exception of maybe a couple people who, kind of like we said, maybe they're kind of a little bit, their base personalities kind of sour a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
but Jerry's probably the most ubiquitous guy. I miss Mike every day, but Mike was I never saw those guys say no to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Never, not once. And not if it was the most mundane question, if it was, and so it's like, man, I don't get this like pro arrogance thing or this deal. And I just kind of wanted to quell it and say, let's go back to shooting our hobby. Let's go back to having fun and dinner.
I honestly wonder sometimes, Craig, if it's someone's own insecurity, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you were a single guy at one time, right?
Oh yeah. You
ever see a girl in a bar and think like, oh, I bet she's just not a nice person? Probably a word that starts with a B, right? But
well, that's not very true, because that's really true of all women. They're evil.
Hey now,
they're mean.
Hey now,
I bring on the hate. No.
There's at least 3 women that listen to this podcast.
Everybody knows I'm joking. Please.
Yes, but that is your own insecurity of not wanting to go talk to that attractive woman at a bar, right? Of you're making up an excuse. So when you see like a pro shooter and you're thinking, oh, well, he's over there with his friends and, he doesn't want to be approached at him. It's like, well, did you go talk to him? And then if you did you talk to him when he was on deck? So there's all that stuff that goes with it. 'Cause that kind of stuff's happened to me too. Like just this last weekend, I blew up at a guy because, Craig, I don't know if you follow me on Instagram, but I had a massive rifle malfunction that caused me to mortar my rifle several times, a couple stuck cases, and on the clock, and then I ended up timing out. The very next day, I go to the stage and go to a stage, and it's an all rifle bay stage, and I walk up, I'm the last shooter to get there because I had to go get my big can of 55 grain, and when I get there, the RO says, well, I hope your rifle's working. And I had an emotional response that I'm not proud of, but he definitely deserved it. And, that's his impression of me from now on, and probably several other people that were there. So it's not something I'm proud of. I definitely regret it, but I have a temper like a lot of people. So.
Well, and that's, I think there's a lot to be said about that. That goes for, how we judge ROs and match directors and everybody we interact with. This is entertainment time. Mm-hmm. Nobody's, and even with a couple companies, with Charles and Rob and Pete and some other guys trying to be more professional about their match productions and contracting match productions and all of that kind of thing. Dude, honestly, if running shooting matches was a way to get rich, people would have been doing it for a long time before now.
Yeah.
Nobody's out there. Nobody's out there.
Yeah. Chad Francis likes to say that the hardest part about running matches is hiding his Lamborghini before everyone comes.
Right. Well, and I think we've told this joke before. The joke used to be what does a gunsmith and a large pizza have in common? They barely feed a family of 4.
Oh,
well, you could say that about anything match direction too, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Somebody says, "Oh, they made a bunch of money." Really? Did they? And so, kind of trying to remember that, and that's I maybe it is coming out of winter a little bit. This winter was that way, but I just noticed that there's become kind of a tenor to, and maybe there is some hate to folks who have built a jersey and maybe they're not really the pro shooter. They just put the logos on. But I would suggest to people, like, you've got an Under Armour shirt on, bro. You got Nike shoes on. You're a walking billboard in your normal clothes as it is. So what does it hurt if a guy wants to do a shirt and put Cool Guy Go Fast logos on it because he likes those companies? It's not. Go have fun. Back to Jordan Peterson's become famous, right? But he says this deal like, is your room clean?
Yeah.
Like, before you go out and tell the world how to live, did you clean your room? And that's just, if you're dialed and you're winning matches and everything's perfect in your world, go on with your bad self. But I'd almost say that if you were doing that, you wouldn't be the slightest bit worried about pro shooters, jersey shooters, whatever's going down.
Yeah. All right. Well, Craig, I want to get to our last topic here, which is should match directors shoot their own match? But before we do that, there's been some really good comments in the chat here.
Yeah.
And
how do I get that up, by the way?
how do you get that up?
Yeah.
You gotta view the watch page, and then you have to mute it so you don't get any sound feedback.
Gotcha.
So it's the link that you shared on Facebook, and be sure to mute that. So let's see. We got a couple people saying hello. Lance Hupper says Craig's best. That guy's the reason I own an X-Rail, and Jerry made fun of me. And Rob Hall says, Dave, I hope you're happy. I'm wasting my dry fire practice to watch you. I am happy. Thanks, Rob. And
Yeah,
then,
no kidding.
Yeah, Jeremy Reed says, "What's up, Dave and Craig?" And okay, so Rob Hall says, "This is on the Serpent topic." He says, "You have to be diplomatic when you talk to people about poor gear choices. People don't like to admit that they wasted money, and they can be belligerent when confronted." That's true. Just look at anyone that drives a Ford. Oh, I went there.
Wow.
I'm kidding.
Actually, I got a new truck and I bought a little Ford. I'm pretty tickled with it, but
Oh.
I'm not a brand guy.
I'm sure your
As far as
Ford's fine.
vehicles go- yeah, as far as vehicles go, I'm not a brand guy.
I'm really not either, but my stepdad has always been a Ford guy, and he gave me a real hard time when I bought a Chevy. But let's see. So Jeremy Gresham says, people talk less trash in the summer because they are likely going to run into that person on the range soon. In the winter, they all become keyboard ninjas. That is a damn good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? What is it that a man's manners are far better when he realizes he might have to back up the words he says with his fists or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Let's see. So Lance Hupper also says, I went to 3 breweries within 5 minutes of the range. He's talking about the Colorado 3-Gun Championship. Good for you. You're in Colorado, so there's all kinds of great stuff 5 minutes from the range. Lance also says, Super Squad kills newbies. We always want to talk about new shooters and bringing them to the sport. Let them play golf with Tiger Woods. It's the best thing about our sport.
So we had a great time with Lance. Actually shot with us at Safari Land last year, and Safari Land's a little bit different of a match because there's so much going on and you can shoot 4 things. But I don't know. I get it. I get some guys have said like, well, if I shoot with folks who are much better than me, then I get nervous and I have some performance anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's fair. And then there's always the problem of everybody wants to help everybody. So you might be getting some conflicting information and it's a little hard to sort through. But the other part of it is that we all know there's no getting better than being around better shooters.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I don't know that I've tried not to kill any newbies. If there's any newbies out there that are dead, I'm sorry.
Well, two things. One, I think that I shoot best with my my buddies from my hometown, like the people that I have grown up in the shooting sports with, shooting club matches. But I'd really enjoy shooting with you and with this weekend I shot with all the dudes from Hayes Custom Guns. So I enjoy shooting with all the people that have been on the podcast a lot. But it does cause Dave to put undue pressure on Dave.
Well, and you know what we had, so a lot of people have had this with Pete's USSL stuff and kind of the explosion in divisions, if you will, right? So I'm sidetracked. I don't want to take up too much time, but
no, I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I just saw a new comment come in, so sorry, that was my
bad. So everybody says, oh, well, we can't have too many divisions because, blah, blah, blah. It waters down the competition. And I can agree with that. But so few people within let's take all of the 3-gun shooters. Let's say you've shot 5 travel matches, all of those shooters. Let's say there's 10,000 of them. How many of them, really, really goal-oriented towards being a top 5 shooter in their division? It's not very many. And so while all of those shooters would likely say, hey, I want the divisions to stay small so I can go to TAC Ops, and when I win TAC Ops, I know I'm the greatest of all time, right? Fair enough. I get it. I actually favor that. But if we look at it from an organizational standpoint and growing the sport and having a place for people to be, and you said it well in saying, I shoot best with my buddies. It's because you're having fun and you're doing stuff, and your group of buddies does something a little different than my group does, or than Aaron Hayes and those guys do, or, whoever else it is, right? Everybody kind of gets in their own little deal and has a good time with it. And I think that's really important for us to go forward with, is realizing, hey, man, do your fun thing. And if you get with somebody else, go do their fun thing. You might find out some fun things to bring back to your fun thing, right? And I just rather than having that exclusivity thing, I've been really focusing on doing the inclusive thing and looking for more fun.
Right, I like that. Okay, let's run through these comments real quick, and then let's get to our last topic here. So Rob Hall says it's entitlement. People resent the top performers because they want to be one themselves, but they're not willing to put in the work necessary. Therefore, in their mind, the top guys did something that's not on the up and up to get there.
That's probably true in some cases. I think there's sometimes it's
like the resentment of the rich, right? There's the old school mentality of like, well, they must have done something underhanded rather than provided massive value to people,
Yep.
All right, so I'm guessing these ones are all related to Ford. Sean Nelson says, whoa, shots fired. Steve Lee says, low blow. Rob Hall says, dude, that Ford comment is like punching a dude below the belt. Sorry, guys, I didn't. Guess I should have realized there was a bunch of Ford owners out there, but Steve Lee also says, I shoot better when I'm an MD, which we'll get to in just a moment. What Goes Boom says, thoughts on carry optic pistol in TAC Ops. And I can't believe we forgot about this one. Craig, we're going to talk about this one next time. We got to skip that because that one's going to be another hour conversation. Jeremy Reed says, ask Craig if he's shooting 115s.
There's a backstory to that one.
I'm guessing.
No, I'm shooting 124s, and Jeff Snope knows to not bring up the 115s. So,
all right, okay. So, our last topic, Craig, should match directors shoot their own match? So, we had this is actually the title of the show, and when I shared the link in Three Gun Talk, it sparked some response and a little bit of controversy already. We should clarify that we're talking major matches, right? Like if we're setting up a club match, it's totally fine to shoot it. There's no prize at the end of the day. There's maybe bragging rights. But what we're talking about is when there's a championship on the line, there's maybe some glass or some steel in a trophy, some bronze, some brass, whatever you want to call it. And a belt would be cool. And then a prize table walk. So those are the situations that I was referring to. Is that the way you saw it too?
Yeah, and like I said, I think this goes hand in hand.
What is that? Where did you get that? What is that in your hand?
This is a cat that's taken. This is so when we bought the new house, Karen and I finally she wanted some cats, and I've always had pets, but when I single, it's just like you said, it's hard to be fair to the pet when you're gone a lot. And so she went to the pound and got a couple cats, and this guy decided I'm his. And he rarely is when I'm home, he's rarely more than a couple feet away. He's been sitting on this chair behind me over here.
Interesting.
And but he came over and he'll sit on my leg while I'm on the computer. So he sits on my leg and I do computer stuff, and he's just pretty chill dude.
All right then. Well, my bad.
Old and grumpy.
Hey, sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So sorry I interrupted you there.
No.
I didn't see the cat when I was reading the chat, and I turn around and you're holding something. It's like, geez. But,
what is that?
Yeah. All right. So we're talking about major matches, right? Club matches. Totally understand.
Dude, I would never. My local club guys work so hard. Kerry Palmer, Steve Terry, Kirby. Dude, they work so damn hard. I would never, in my right mind, tell them they couldn't shoot their own match. That would be stupid, right? And that goes for. We had a local shooter who shall remain nameless, but he went kind of full turd and accused someone who went out and helped set up a match of only setting up the match so they could gain an advantage. Now, mind you, this is June 2nd. It was like 104 degrees, and he literally made the accusation that they were out there helping out so they could do better. Right?
Oh, nice. Yeah. So I recently said
silly.
I've been trying to help as much as I can with one of our local matches here in Colorado, since I do have the flexibility to take a Friday to go set up and then, work on Three Gun Show stuff on Sunday if I need to be, because I don't actually have to physically be anywhere most of the time. But I've experienced the setting up in 100-degree heat, and then the next day you have the residual heat stroke.
Well, and see that was my whole argument to this idiot was like, dude, if it's such an advantage, where were you?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You're a competitor. Why weren't you out there taking advantage of it, right? And you sacrificed yourself to stay in air conditioning so that you wouldn't do as well. I get it, right? Like that's your logical argument. And so, yeah, on the local level, even at the smaller regional match level, things like that, like, man, I'm not gonna have a stand. I think we start getting to a clear line. When, Aaron Hayes mentioned it, when you're a match director and you're going to be making calls and $2,000-$3,000 rifles are in the mix, right?
Right.
Or, now that, and I'm not putting the heat on those guys, but now that there's companies out there, that specifically contract to put a match on the ground.
Right.
And there's more than one. I know everybody on the 3-gun side probably thinks SMD, but there's some companies in the precision rifle game and stuff like this that do that as well. I think when you contract to put a match on the ground, then yeah, I think the expectation is that there will be nothing that even is remotely improprietous there.
Wait, hang on. Are you saying that that you are contracting a company to remain fair? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think what happens is once it's become a profitability deal, right? Like if I'm in the neighborhood and we have we throw the barbecue out in the front yard and it's the neighborhood street, meet your neighbor thing, and I cook hot dogs and hamburgers. Nobody's expecting that you get to sue me because the hamburger had a little piece of gristle in it or something like that. I open up a McDonald's and now we have a different situation. And I think now that we're getting to that point where there's some contract matches or it's become more common for an industry sponsor or an industry partner to buy a match and put it on.
Right.
I think then, we just really need to keep it clean. And to be honest, I don't know. I have no proof that anybody's ever been nefarious. So let's be clear. I'm making no accusations that way. But I can also see that when somebody designs the stages, puts the stages on the ground, gets paid to do so, and then they shoot and win their own match, I can see how that.
Yeah.
People are gonna point some fingers. And
that is
that's a problem.
Overt and blatant conflict of interest, and the. I mean, I don't know how you could see that any other way.
No.
We're getting some comments in the chat right now that I want to address. Rob Hall says there's no advantage to setting up or helping for a match. If anything, I'd argue it's a disadvantage. It's physically exhausting. Rob, you might be around my age, but if you're younger, I would disagree wholeheartedly that it's a disadvantage because they bounce back faster. Rob also says, oh no, not going to read that one. But what? So on that, yeah, exactly. So on that, Rob, I totally disagree with you there because there is an advantage, and I actually experienced it. So for background, Craig, I consulted you on a match that I'm about to run in a few months on what the right way to score award winners and prize table organization is, right? So I did that with several people that I respect in 3-gun, and the consensus was all the same, right? Even if you don't have any sort of nefarious plans, it can be seen that way. If you set up one hidden target on the entire match, a 10-stage match, one hidden target, you know where that hidden target is, and everyone else has to look for that target. I experienced this right around a year ago, maybe a little less, shooting a jungle run in an RO match. I ran right by a target because we were rushed. We didn't get a 5-minute walkthrough. And then the match director, co-match director were yucking it up and laughing that I ran past the target. And It didn't hit me until
a year later when I had a conversation with someone about, the possibility of there being hidden targets that, like that is a clear advantage because they knew that target was there because they hammered in the stand,
Well, and so this brings up a question, and it came up in we were discussing this exact subject a couple years ago. And it was, okay, so somebody set up something special. We'll call it a special target, whatever that is, a hidden one. Maybe it's a goofy distant slug target, something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they've then had the chance to, or maybe it's a timing target with spinners involved, right? Where they've had the chance to roll that through. And so they know the perfect timing for these 4 activators, all this circus craziness.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another good point.
So let's say that's the case. There's this place that's set up that they know the secret to it. It still doesn't have to be nefarious because they still have to perform. So here comes in the problem. Is that match director that we're accusing of that of, are they of the skill set and the capability to capitalize on that advantage? There's a lot of match directors out there that set up a difficult skill, a got you, whatever the case may be. But in my experience, a lot of the match directors are pretty good dudes, but they're generally not your high performing guys. And they found a place to be, right? I know some Steve Terry doesn't travel to shoot pistol matches, but he totally enjoys setting up matches and doing that for the local guys to shoot local matches. And even if someone knows all the spots to shoot on that stage or whatever, can they actually capitalize and win with that? So I think that's another step to it. I still think therein lies you shouldn't do it because it appears that there's an advantage.
Yeah.
And if it appears there's going to be an advantage, then you excuse yourself. And like I said, I think when we separate that out to big major matches, big travel matches, nationals, big regionals, something like that, national level matches, that plays into that. And that's all in your and I's discussion on your event, that's where you say, hey, is everybody okay doing this? Is transparency is an issue. And I don't want to dig on anybody's fun, but as this sport grows and as it gets more serious, I think in the earlier discussion today, somewhere I saw Aaron Hayes had posted up that, players don't call strikes in baseball.
Yeah.
Umpires do.
Yeah. And that's a legit thing. And, for, people who weren't privy to our conversation, I decided that, I would, do what a lot of people do and shoot the match that I'm setting up, remove my score before we compile the results, and then not walk the prize table, even though ours is going to be random draw. And that's not like it's not a holier than thou thing. It's just like the right thing to do. And there is one other match staff that's going to do that with me as well, so we can all do the scoring properly.
Matt Kupika made a comment, and I just wanted to recognize that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. I know plenty of guys who do this match directing thing and haven't helped Travis with MGM Ironman over the years and RO'd a few matches. It really is a lot of fun to do a good job helping shooters have fun.
Yeah.
So if you're a guy that's setting up 8 matches a year, 8 majors a year, okay, I get it. You want to shoot one. But for most folks, they're doing that one major a year. Man, travel and go shoot another major.
Yeah. And
focus on yours. And I think it's good for everybody.
I don't understand the people that, like, for there's no one here that has said it, but on the Facebook there's like, well, I wouldn't set up a match if I couldn't shoot it. And again, I think that comment was for like club matches, major matches. There's so much more value other than just shooting a match. There's doing things for other people has its own value, right?
Absolutely. And I'll use this example. There was actually a pretty big national level match that was put on. The MD was a good dude, but it was kind of a goofy match. It was one of these kind of winner take all format, world shoot things type of deals. and the MD shot his own match, and there was all kinds of issues with it because you're using stage guns and this and that. And it was pointed out to him that, hey, man, what doesn't look good that you're shooting your own match. And of course, he took it very personally and said, you're questioning my integrity. And I don't think it was brought up in that way, but I can see how he took it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But from the outside guy, I was just kind of watching this go down, and it was like, well, what else would you expect people to say?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can't say, hey, I did really well at this. I set it up, I made the rules, and I administered those rules, and I finished 5th, but I did it real honest, right? Like,
yeah.
And I'm sure he did. I want to make it clear. There's no, I don't think there was anything nefarious going on, but it did look horrible. And there were people from around the world there at that match. And so you have to be really careful with that. And like I said, that's where I land on just, it looks better for the sport.
Mm-hmm.
It is better for the sport, and it eliminates any type of hard feelings. And then we're back to what we talked about earlier. Let's have fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and the other thing to consider is when you think of like, well, none of the match directors would do that. Yeah, there's been a lot that have done that in the past. And if you want to talk about stories, find anyone on the range that looks like they've been around a while and ask them, because that has definitely happened. But we need to grab some of these questions or some of these comments, because there's a bunch of good ones in here. Kupika, Kupika always surprises me being the voice of reason, by the way, because he's also one of the funniest dudes I've ever met.
I've never spent very much time with Matt. I really would like to, because just like you said, every time I see him post or something, it's really, really well reasoned. It's appropriate. From watching his social media, like he does so many good things as far as, being supportive of guys and helping new shooters and stuff like that.
Yeah. Don't give him your phone number. That's all I say. But no, I'm just kidding. Love you, Matt. So Matt says, I think setting a match has a number of distinctive advantages, like subconscious bias, which is a huge one we didn't even bring up, in stage design, or knowing about specific challenges in advance. Although being in the wrong place mentally or physically exhausted often prevents people from capitalizing on the advantage, it doesn't make it not exist.
That
End of conversation.
Exactly what we talked about, right? Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much all that needs to be said on the topic, but there's plenty more here. So Rob Hall says, I can see that, Matt, but I have to wonder if the physical aspect combined with the fact that you've done 8-10 stages offsets it. I don't agree. Siowitz says, how many major MDs could actually win a major match? So, I mean, that's an interesting point too. So I've seen some match staff continually be in the top 3 for a match, but when you look at like their track history for the last 3 years that I've been paying super attention, like I've been shooting 3-gun for 7 years, but I haven't been really paying attention for that whole time.
Well, let me give you an example.
Let me finish real quick.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
You'll find that they only shoot their own match, and it's just that they put on a large volume of matches.
Right.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I apologize for breaking in on you. I thought you had finished thought. There's a match, and I generally don't. There was the MD was very famous for kind of jumping. Well, he was that definition of he couldn't win a major match, but he would tend to punish not his division, if you will. So the one year he switched from open to heavy, all of a sudden, all the prone shooting in the entire match went away. And it was a pretty rifle heavy match. So every rifle position took away a bipod.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fair enough, right? Like that's still a shooting challenge, but it was like, how did that happen? How was that? The only place we could ever shoot a rifle was, you could never get a prone position. And so, yeah, Matt said it, right? Regardless of whether the MD can win or will win, I think the other part of it is just for the sport's health, the people who administer the rules and make judgments on the rules should probably not be a competitor at that event. Doesn't mean they can't compete at other events. There's plenty of There's plenty of most tennis players, ref a little at other tennis tournaments or so on and so forth.
And it doesn't even mean you can't shoot it. You just should excuse yourself from scoring. Kurt Gruber says, Craig just described me, but I still would never shoot a match I am running. It isn't about winning. If it moves you up the finish one spot, that is bad enough, which is a good point. Like for me, I'm not a top 5 shooter. So, putting on a match wouldn't make me go from 5 to 1. It might make me go from, I don't know, 50 to 45, but still that's an advantage, right?
And
guy in the middle gets screwed.
Here's a good question. Here's a whole nother angle to look at it is if you're putting on a major match and people are spending a significant amount of money to travel to it and you're shooting it, are you giving the full attention to that match experience that you maybe should be?
Yeah.
Right. Or could you make it that much better, that much more smooth, that much better for those in attendance?
Yeah. That's a good point. I've shot several RO matches and a couple of them were very, very disorganized. And the ones that were the most disorganized were the match directors were shooting there with us. So, which you would think would be the opposite. But Matt Kupika says we decided not to shoot our state match because of making calls, etc., like Craig mentioned. Yeah. But also, it was way more fun for me to focus on running the thing anyway, just like you said.
Yeah, and that's the one that I saw when I said I wanted to point out that's an awesome comment, right? Yeah. Sorry, I was behind.
Ernest Gruneman says MD shouldn't shoot their own matches, leaves too much open for interpretation. Kurt says it has to because there's not profit in it. I don't know what he was talking about there. Jeremy Gresham says every MD I've seen during and after a major match, they are worn out. They aren't mentally there to shoot. They just want to go home. And then Aaron Hayes says, Jeremy, sometimes they walk the prize table as a winner before they go home, which is a good point. Casey Pratt, my boy Casey. I haven't seen that guy in a long time. Hopefully.
I saw him the other day. It's not that great.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind then.
Running the. We got the monkey on the hat tonight. No, Casey's awesome, man.
Casey's a great dude, man. I can't wait to see him again when I come out to Utah. Casey says doing things for other people has a value. True, Dave. Thank you. Jeremy Gresham says, Aaron, at what point do we stop being polite and start calling people out? I'm game. That's a very good point, Craig. At what point do we start calling people out?
So you and I have talked about this, because we had that long discussion about, match recons and stuff like that. And how does that go? And how does it work? And still a discussion, by the way. Right. And I'm all for being, I think I've tried really hard to be pretty honest with what I say. Sometimes, it takes more explanation to get the nuances out there or whatever. I think we run into a couple of things with calling people out. And one of them is do we have absolute proof that happened? Right. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong. I don't doubt it. I know of a couple of, we'll say one long ago passed because this guy isn't involved anymore. But a match in Texas was given 2 1911 Colt commemorative pistols. Mm-hmm. They didn't show up on the prize table.
Is this Texas multi-gun thing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So
originally, right?
Yeah.
But an MD wound up with one. And so I know that there's been some factual things that have happened, but I think we have to be really careful in calling that out because back to, this is somebody's hobby, and do we ruin, so we give someone the market cane based on rumor and not knowing the whole story, and it blows up on Facebook, and all of a sudden that's a really hard thing to come back from. Don't get me wrong. I have no sympathy for. There was a PRS guy that cheated just recently and got outed. There's been some folks here. The whole +2 scandal and USPSA, all of that. I have no sympathy for folks who ruin their own fun, but I also think we need to be really careful of conjecture. And I know Aaron's pretty solid on, and I think I know who and what he's talking about, but those are things that, I'm cool with having that discussion. We just need to be able to have that discussion in kind of a fair, straight up way, mm-hmm. rather than the internet's a bad place to have that, I think.
Right. And to be fair, that was Jeremy that said not Aaron. He was just directing that at Jeremy. or at Aaron, excuse me.
Right. And Aaron was like, yeah, not too far from it.
Right. But I will say though that Aaron and Kurt, Aaron Hayes, Kurt Gruber have commented on this quite a bit. Now they run Texas 3-gun championship, which is not Texas multi-gun, and that is a very important distinction. And from my observation, they are extra special careful about this topic because of what happened with Texas multi-gun.
Well, Texas multi-gun, and is there a Texas multi-gun currently?
There's a North Texas multi-gun.
Okay, but that's not associated
not
with the
at
old...
all, completely different. That's run by someone else.
People, Mark LaRue's kind of a controversial individual, but Mark LaRue was one of the best supporters in 3-gun for a long time. I don't know if you've heard about the Tummy Tornado trailer. But
where everyone's undershorts smelled like barbecue for several days afterwards.
Oh, dude! LaRue would pay his employees, tow the trailer to a match, and feed everybody for 3 days.
Yeah, it's amazing.
As many smoked sausages or pulled pork tacos that you wanted, drinks,
God,
chips,
awesome.
Right? So, had to be several $1,000s per match, easy. Probably getting almost to 5 digits, I bet, to travel. He pulled it to Kentucky for the Pro-Am, for instance. That match and that match director soured him so badly that he pulled completely out of sponsoring competitive shooting. And I honestly can't blame him, right? And so, I think it's totally good for us to be solid and police ourselves and try to keep those things on the up and up. And I think that's where this discussion is important, is let's make that the standard of behavior.
Yeah. Well,
don't shoot your own match. If you're going to put stuff on an RO prize table, make sure the shooters know that there's an RO prize table. I have no problem rewarding the ROs and making it worthwhile for ROs to be there. But there's a couple matches that have done that kind of under the table, so to speak, right? You and I talked about it. As long as it's transparent and we know what we're expecting out of a match, then I think we can go forward and police ourselves. And to the point of calling out past sins, maybe what we do is say, hey, as we've grown, some of that shit's happened. It's not going to happen in the future. So here's the new rules, and that way we don't have to get into a big. I just don't want a big storm of innuendo and conjecture, right?
I mean, nobody wants that, but when you look at, a friend of we did a cheating episode on the 3-Gun Show Patreon a while back that will never see the light of day. It's on patreon.com/3gun show. If you want to check it out yourself, you can do that as a subscriber. But one of the things that a friend of mine brought up when I said that we were going to be doing that episode, and he probably shouldn't be named, said that the deflate gate, which, by the way, saying gate after every sort of controversial topic is the dumbest thing ever, because it was Watergate. That was the name of the hotel. Anyway,
right.
So the deflate gate, I forgot the dude's name. Tom Brady, is that right?
Tom Brady.
Yeah, so he had someone deflate the football so he could grab him better or something like that. Totally cheating, legit cheating, blatant cheating, and he received a suspension. It was all over ESPN for a while. It was all over the news. Now it's completely gone. No one cares anymore. So does airing it in public allow it to be done and gone, and then we can all move on rather than let it fester and wonder and rumors?
There's a lot of corollaries. Bear with me for a minute, but
sure.
We talked about pro shooters. We talked about contract match staff, stuff like this. We want this sport to grow. We want to share it with more people. We want it to get bigger. We want to have more support and all of that. That means more stakeholders. The reason Tom Brady isn't in any trouble is there's a lot of people making money on Tom Brady.
That's a very good point, dude.
Granted, that's a much bigger thing than we're at, but there was a situation at a match where a shooter had DQ'd and wanted to get some pictures for a sponsor, which okay, maybe that's harmless, maybe it's not, but it falls into that deal of well, wait a second, would that have been done? He wanted to get some sponsor pictures by shooting a stage after he had DQ'd.
Oh, I gotcha.
Right. Sorry, I didn't explain that very well. But the question comes up is, how does that look? And those are the things that I think I'm talking about going forward, where we say, and I don't know how we do it without an overreaching organization, but we just kind of, maybe we hold that behavior to ourselves. And that's why I said, that's Tom Brady's a great analogy as to why I think there's a lot of danger into just straight up calling someone out without just unless you've got a picture of somebody, under the prize table, reaching up over and grabbing something and sneaking away with it. All you're going to do is split factions, and it'll forever be the argument. And I don't think that's helpful for us as a very small community. Therefore, as a small community, let's just look at it on the up and up and create a good system of expectations.
I like it.
Go forward with it.
I like it. Well, Craig, man, the comments have calmed down. I think everyone's gotten it out of their system. And I think that's a great place to end the show, man. So self-policing, higher expectations, and I think you and I are
fun, man.
Yeah, fun, for God's sake. And I think you and I are both of the opinion that no match directors in major matches should not shoot their own match for score, for prizes, etc. Because when there is prizes with high value or money on the line, it does raise questions. So, but let us know what you think. So if you see this on YouTube, add a comment. If you saw this on Facebook, add a comment. When you see this or hear this later on the podcast, excuse me, make sure that you comment on the blog. Let us know what you think and explain your position well, rather than just random Facebook statements of proclamations. So that always helps.
Stir in the pot, right? Let's just go over and drop a grenade in the pot and walk away.
Yeah, exactly. Just the the random well, I shoot my own matches. It's like, okay, buddy, we don't know who shoot tough 54 is. Okay, so so yeah, complete sentences, everyone. But all right, man. So I guess, Craig, that wraps her up, dude. Thank you for being a part of the show once again.
Dude,
and
awesome. Thank you for having me. I love it. And
I appreciate you taking on the controversial topics, because this was a fun one, and I thought we handled it pretty well.
No, I thought it turned out really good. I thought we'd do well. And just like you said, right, it's I think a lot of these things are up for discussion, and they just sometimes don't lend them well to quipping each other back and forth in Facebook comments, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it's much easier to have a discussion and flesh it out.
Definitely. All right, Craig. Well, thank you for being a part of this. Everyone listening, thank you for being a part of the Three Gun Show. Appreciate your support. Craig, hang with me here. Folks, we'll see you on the range. Thank you. Before you take off, make sure to head over to threegunshow.com/episode 204 to let us know what your opinions are on these topics that we discussed. While you're there, consider supporting the show on Patreon. I'm working hard to bring you special discounts for members from several companies over the next few months, and some cool incentives as well. So support the content that you enjoy one-to-one, and pledge to support the Three Gun Show for as little as the cost of 3 rounds of 9mm per episode. Not very much when you think about it in that context. This podcast is brought to you by Armalite, the original. Armalite rifles put the AR in AR-15. The rifles themselves come with 1-8 twist barrels, match barrels, 18-inch or 13.5-inch with a 15-inch or 12.5-inch handguard, Timney trigger, Luth AR stock, adjustable gas system, tunable comp, a patented tunable comp. This thing's ready to go right out of the box for a 3-gun with no additional modifications other than putting on a nice optic. I myself use a Vortex Viper PST 1-6 when I'm shooting TAC Ops, or their Spitfire when I'm shooting limited. Check them out at armalite.com. Quick reminder that if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, subscribe in iTunes, Google Play, Podcast Addict, or wherever you get your podcast content, so you will always get the very latest. Thank you so much for downloading, listening, and subscribing to the show. I'm Dave Hartman, and I'll see you on the range.
finished. Unload, show clear.